Hi, everybody. This is Juliet. And if you're watching us, this is UX and Tame. And I'm super excited because June is being all about the Pride Edition. I made sure this year that I was going to bring a lot of guest speakers from different spaces, as diverse as I could. Even I feel like I've been telling you, all of you, on the last episodes, we will still have some Pride Edition guests coming up in the future. But I feel like my camera is not even. I mean, what is going on? Okay, I don't know if this helps. Maybe this helps. Um, as we know, today we're going to talk about something that I'm really excited, something that I really like. And I have met a lot of people that have been coming new into tech, new as a UX designers. And I think when you're switching careers, building community is going to be one of the superpowers that is going to help you to grow and know more about what it is to be in tech and what it is to be a UX designer. So let's bring our guest speaker, Elisabeth. How is it going? How are you?
Hello, hello. How are you?
Nice to have you here. We
Same.
are so close and so far.
No.
I'm considering you're in Seattle. It's sunny here. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's cloudy there right now.
No, sun's out.
Yes, exactly. That's when you have to kind of. That's when I love the most Vancouver, and that's when I love the most Canada. Is when it's sunny outside. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we start telling people about you? Who are you?
So I'm Elizabeth Hanson. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a UX designer, and I've got a background of lots of different things leading up to this. I've lived all different places in the world, in New York, and Munich, and Sydney, and now I'm back in the States.
And I feel like, again, what I like about every single guest speaker that I have invited so far is how diverse, and we've been coming from every single spaces, and that's, again, one of our superpowers when we're coming as a UX designers. But again, this story, no, this question is one of the one that I love the most because people always surprise me with big things. So, what is something unique or fun about you?
So when I was in Sydney, I did a lot of queer community work or community organizing. And one thing that I brought to the table was, those big inflatable T-Rex outfits, like with the hands and
Yes,
the things.
love it.
So
Like
I had one of
the
those.
one that you go inside and run.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
I had one of those that I had for a different reason, but because I'm in the Sydney Bi Plus community, I brought that to one of the Pride festivals and some of our events as the Binosaur. And probably one of the contributions I am proudest of.
Love it.
Yeah,
I will not call it dinosaur anymore. I will call it by dinosaur. So I love it by dinosaur. That's what you said. Yes, love it.
Binosaur. Yeah.
Dinosaur. Dinosaur. That's easier. I'm making up words. I thought it was always so cool, and they look so cute too. I think it's just the cutest thing ever. Okay, as today we're going to talk about community and how to create it. I think what I like about your story the most is that you've been doing this in different spaces, and I think bringing all our learning now into a new field is one of the most powerful things. So what did you do before thinking to be a UX designer?
So my background's in education and in program management. I was a teacher in business English kind of space in professional spaces with adults who were in businesses that had international counterparts, and was helping them not just with language but with the cultural intersections that they were running into, because I found that you could speak great English, but it's not the only piece to the puzzle. So my job was to help them navigate all of that. And that evolved into, I was doing some student exchange work in Sydney, and working with programs and with families and schools and international students. Um, and then, COVID hit and all the programs ended, and I moved into more not-for-profit learning and development spaces. I was an e-learning consultant and designer, and did some LMS, learning management system administration and training, and that e-learning LMS tech space kind of was an early step into UX. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's the next question. Like, oh yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to. I always forget to add this, and it's an interesting thing in this pride space is that that's the work I was paid to do on this on my side. The work that was unpaid though that I really care about is I did lots of community development in the queer community. So I was a leadership team member for the Sydney Bi Plus network that involved event planning and advocacy, grant writing, speaking at conferences, holding different social events, and doing lots of strategizing for what you can do in the queer community in Sydney. So I forget to add that sometimes because some part of my brain is like, oh, that was volunteer. And it's like, no, no, no. That is some work. Like so
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
also what I was doing.
Love it. And I think, again, this is not the topic for today. We're talking about community, but I think just thinking about everything that we have done, everything outside of like paying work, like volunteer work. And for me, that was a big learning when I moved to Canada, how important volunteer work it is. Like in Colombia is not like a big thing. And I think it's been improving as like a real experience because it is.
Yeah.
How all of this have been shaping your life, has been shaping your brain, the way, the things that you value to come into whatever career you decide to take in your case, and in our case is UX design. But all of these you bring it into your toolbox, and it's really important of the skills that you have learned. Okay, so you were saying, oh, I touched a little bit about what it was UX design. Maybe it wasn't the name per se. So how did you ended up knowing that you want to come into tech as a UX designer?
I think I had started to I had was meeting more people who were in the tech space, and I think I learned a lot about um, some of the contrasting spaces between what could work in tech space, offer some of it as a personal thing around salary and around um, kind of work life balance and that kind of thing, but also looking at how the pace of things was a little bit different in tech because digital stuff is changing all the time. And I really liked the e-learning consulting and I thought, "Ooh, these are great tools. What other things in tech can I do that could be a part of helping people's experiences?" And UX specifically, I kind of found it on accident. And I think sometimes I hear that sometimes that people are like, "Ah, yeah, having a look around," and then it became this thing. And I was looking at some of the Google courses for something else, and I ran into the Coursera course for UX, and I had seen it pop up a couple different spots and then was like, I should check this out. And going around on the YouTube and learning more about what it could look like and what it could look like in education and what it could look like around talking about empathy and user journeys and that kind of thing. I was like, oh, I could do this. And it was good timing in that um, after being laid off in COVID and then working in not-for-profit space with the e-learning stuff and feeling a bit like I gotta shift something around. I took a bit of a leap and I did a boot camp and um, found that there were lots of things that really like tickled the brain about, ooh, this is really cool. This is really interesting. And these things line up. Yeah.
I love that part. It's like, oh, I don't know how these like UX design came into my Google search or my YouTube, but I feel like as we start putting all the things that we want for as our next career or the checklist, I feel like we start like searching and putting things together, and it's like, of course, Google, smart Google, start putting all those things, and it's like, oh, I think they mean this, and that's how you ended up coming in. But I feel like it's really interesting to start questioning yourself, and it's like, what is my dream job? How does it look like? And sometimes life and help you to get to that point. So I feel like that's super powerful, and it's something that I love to talk about.
Yeah.
But okay, what it is so important to build community in a new career and a new field?
I found that, I mean, in boot camp land, everybody's new and everyone's in that. Well, not maybe not everyone, but a very, very large percentage of what I found with the boot camp that I did was that people are career switching, and it is a vulnerable, you know, it's vulnerable. It's an investment. It's how many people were on a path that they thought they wanted in their career, and then it changed, and that admitting that change is a kind of a scary thing. And finding that community, I think, meant there was lots of empathy and lots of specifically one way I that there was a very consistent piece of wanting to support each other, and that um, that was really important. And it took me a little while to kind of get into that part of it. I think I until I was doing more user interviews and usability tests and asking people, hey, can you do this for me? And I'll do this in return. I wasn't quite aware yet of, oh, we're out here supporting each other left, right, and center. Like this is a consistent, genuine thing. And yes, we're kind of bartering our tasks with one another, but okay. Like the really fabulous conversations that came out of that exchange meant a lot. It was reassuring and it was validating. And so having that community for those pieces, for validation and empathy and support, in addition to what you learn about the craft and about the skill set from other people, is also really valuable. So I think at its in that space, that was super, super important. Um, and then your boot camp ends and you're out in the trenches right now, and maintaining that community in the face of layoffs. I finished my boot camp in December 2022, and the layoffs were really kind of in motion, and the market's tough and that kind of thing. And so keeping that community is important, not just for the networking, but also for the same reassurance, empathy, support, and all that kind of thing.
Um, I mean, myself, I did a boot camp too, and it was just at the beginning of COVID. So that was April 2020. So we didn't know exactly what was going on and what was going to happen. It was funny because at the beginning of every week, the teacher will say, "We will evaluate if we're coming back in person. Don't worry. But at the end of the week, we will have an answer for you."
Yeah.
End of the cohort, we still didn't have an answer, of course. But I feel like the power of like all of us being in the same space, and it's like we don't know what is going to happen. What it is, we were the first cohort online too,
Oh,
100%, because they
wow.
had like a format. It was 1 week online when you get the chance to meet your classmate, you work in something together, and then you come in person. So of course we never had that. So for us to have that space where we were like, okay, we are all lost, we don't know what is going on, plus the
Yeah.
world is like pulling apart.
Mhm.
That was such a great space where it's like, okay, we all feeling like this. This is crappy. We learning online, it was a new thing, like a completely new thing for all of us. So that was such a good experience for be all in the same space. But then something that it was really interesting for me, I was coming from retail. It was
Mhm.
like the power of the community and how much everybody wants to help each other. Like
Yeah.
it didn't feel the same in retail. In retail is like, I don't know who you are. I don't know. You want to take over me. You want to take my job. Like it was never like this in tech. And I feel like whoever you speak with, they said the best part about tech, and I cannot speak about developers or I cannot speak about other roles, but the power of being in tech in UX design is how much everybody's willing to open a space and help
Mhm.
up. Um, but what happened after? Like, yes, like now we are uh, thinking about you. You finished the boot camp. It's been a while. How it is to build a still community with a different purpose? Because now I feel like uh, you have a different purpose and a different goal, correct?
Yeah, you're trying to get a job now.
Yeah.
um, I think it walks this interesting line around building community where I am looking for a bigger, finding a job is a different level of um, effort from the other side, or it's different context. It's lots of different. It's just a different thing from hey, could you do my usability test for me? And so I found with community, what's been the way that I've kind of looked at it is where in professional spaces can we talk about things? Can we connect and share ideas? Can we check in um, and that sort of thing? I found so far that some of it's putting my hand up for stuff like this, putting some and for example, I think we might talk about it in a little bit, but with going to the Figma conference, that yes, it's attending the conference, but it's also, hey, we're going to have this like hike before the conference through this design community and showing up and going and having conversations and connecting with people. And that it's still a contribution of your time and it's still a contribution of your presence and your interest. And I think that people are receptive to that kind of thing as well. I really have found in, learning about there's ladies at UX Seattle who I've been doing some stuff with, and then I learned about UX Wizards, which is another group, and thing different Slack channels, different Discord channels, and that those spaces exist outside of the boot camp space, and they are a little more focused than just perusing LinkedIn. And so that healthy middle, I think, is a good spot to continue to build community, to continue to um, talk to others who are in your position or others who might not be, but you could learn from them, or they could learn from you, or any number of those things. So that's been important for morale and for momentum, and yeah, that's how that's been for me so far.
Um, I mean, we and I think both of us are really active at like finding spaces and how to talk and talk to people. But I feel like a lot of people is not like this. And people come to me and it's like, oh, I don't know, how do I find spaces that value the same as me? How do I connect with people in LinkedIn?
Mhm.
Is this weird? Is this too much? Um, how do you do this? How do you find spaces that are value for you? And I feel like it's important to always remember that it's not just you taking, it's like how you give back. So
Mhm.
how do you find these spaces?
A lot of it has been word of mouth. And one place I started was I had an ADP list mentor session. I had one, but I learned in that conversation when I asked the question, I asked that person the question that you just asked. How do I find it? Where can I go? And not just where can I go, but this is the specific thing I'm looking for. And so I wanted some opportunities to do some projects or to do some team projects. It's different from like my boot camp portfolio case study. And in in an offhand way, she was like, "Oh, have you heard about Tech Fleet?" I was like, "Well, no," and looked it up, and I'm like, "Oh, here's this whole set of opportunities where I can give my time to be a part of these projects, but I'm also the exchange is then the experience and working with a team and what I learn about how do these meetings work? What happens in a UX research meeting? What that and what does a project look like? What does a phase of a project look like? All that kind of stuff. So some of it's just asking, going to ADP list, have a chat with um, a mentor or something like that. Um, I think some of it's who you follow on LinkedIn. I'll see things crop up through ladies at UX kind of just popped up somewhere. I was following a content designer who posted something about a thing, and then I went and looked there, and there it is. Um, and I think I would also say there's value in go have a look, go get a sense of, is this something, that feels right? And sometimes a community that you find might not resonate with your needs, and that's okay. It's okay to say, maybe I don't have the capacity right now to do a project for free. That's okay. There are other opportunities um, to be interacting with people that better match your capacity. Um, and yeah, I think about that, and I think about um, kind of regularly connecting with people is a good way to keep it consistent. And that doesn't have to be like I'm committing all this time to a project, but just, hey, could we have a catch up? Hey, did you hear about this thing? Or someone posted something on LinkedIn, be like, hey, I really like that. That was cool. It'd be great to connect. And slowly that community starts to build.
I love it. And I feel like with all of this that you just said is being genuine. I feel like this is such an
Mm-hmm.
important thing when you are building community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's hard when you are looking for a job. I totally get it. Yes, it's like I need a job, and there are so many occasions that people is like either get a need to get a job in like the next 90 days, or I have to leave the country. Yeah, so
Yep.
there are so many occasions where this is like so important to get, and there is like a get a job or a leave. But again, if you are genuinely talking to people and you want to build real relationships, this is going to change a lot of the approach. As like, hey, Elizabeth, you want to talk to me because I need a job, and give me the job? Like, people would react to that. Yes, and it's like coming back to how do you build real relationship is like being honest, being genuine,
Mhm.
being yourself. And there is always an exchange of information, knowledge. Doesn't matter who are you talking to. If you are coming with an open heart and
Mhm.
putting yourself out, is going to work.
Mhm.
So I feel like how do you build relationship is by being genuine and being yourself.
Mhm.
And when you start connecting with people that have the same values and the same mindset,
Mhm.
this is how you ended up here. I was trying to remember. Oh, how did you know about this? And it's like because we are in the same Slack channel.
Yeah.
Um, and then I put it out. Is like, who would like to participate in my Pride edition for UX and Tame? And again, we have some of the same values. We follow some of the things. Again, on even LinkedIn, like that's such a powerful one.
Mhm.
And then it's like, if I like something and you're following me, like you were saying, then I will see something that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
So how you're being intentional about being in LinkedIn, and you just not like follow absolutely everybody. Well, at one point when you are switching your LinkedIn, for me was a big one. It's like I didn't want people to know more about my retail life. I want everybody now to know that I'm a UX designer, like following people that they're saying something meaningful, something that you can learn from it. And then you start seeing how your network space open, and then you ended up landing in spaces that you're really interested to.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
really
really
like I really like what you said about being really intentional. I think that I think it aligns with the genuineness thing too, because I think intention's really powerful. I think to go in and say, you know, I'm I'm here, yes, to make connections, to explore maybe some career possibilities, but with the openness that it's not that black and white, that there might be other opportunities I don't know about. But if the intention's about staying open and the commitment's to being genuine, then I think a lot more comes out of that than to go in. I don't know. I've kind of heard seen different interactions where it's like, yeah, I'd love to catch up for a coffee. And then it's like, I need a job without, and that I, I hear you on the piece about sometimes you're in a position where you got 90 days and, and I, that's what leaving Sydney was, a visa thing. And it wasn't, that wasn't the outcome I wanted, but it's what happened. And I know that frantic feeling of like, is this job thing going to work out? Like, is this, I don't know. Visas are complicated and all that kind of stuff. And rolling with that outcome, and finding community to sort of have somewhere to land, and then being intentional with where you go next, I think is kind of the way to go.
Definitely. And I mean, again, um, we can talk about this intentionality and being genuine for so long. But again, I feel like it's like for any person that is building community and trying to meet people outside, is
Mhm,
like, what is the reason that you're doing this? And it's for
mhm,
you to be really honest.
mhm,
And remember, what if I asked, like, hey, can we chat because I need a job? And how would you react to that kind of message? So just going the other side, and feel like us as a UX designer, this is something that we do all the time. Yeah, like, what will
mhm,
happen if someone asks me in these ways, just so cold, and we've not even mentioned about really wanted to know me, or we have something in common. I said I would react. I was like, you can message me like a LinkedIn um, high friendship. But if you're not being genuine, it's like, yeah, we'll have you there, and maybe we won't go anywhere past that. So,
yeah.
what will you do? And if it won't work for you, then most likely won't work for the other person. Okay. Something that I'm really interested in is to, because you have done this in the past, you have built communities, you've been there for others when they didn't know what to do. Yes, I've been an international student in many
Mm,
places. Uh, I'm an immigrant myself, and coming to a new culture and not knowing exactly how to act and what to say. Maybe my English was never good, still not perfect, but if you don't know the culture, how to interact, it's really hard to build that community and build uh, a new space of networking. So, how do you think that your skills from the past have helped you to build community right now in a new space like tech, and in a new career like as a UX designer?
I think from the queer community building space, people who were in a position where they had never been a part of the queer community before, they'd not been to an event, they'd never been to a, you know, a call or a meetup or anything like that, who kind of didn't know that from a I think one of the things I really learned in that is that an organizer is often super open to answering questions. So if you show up with good questions and say, and the genuineness piece of it, to be like, I am real new here. Like and here's how I feel. I'm a bit nervous. I don't know what I'm I'm unsure of some things, and to ask questions about, like, what in this community, what are other people kind of doing, and what are the expectations of this specific event? Because it's the sometimes, for example, if you have a queer meetup, one of the questions I think people have when they come to that is like, so are we meeting up to talk about the queer community and talk about queer stuff, or are we people in the queer community who are just going bowling, like, and talking about work and talking about, like, the show we saw? Is this about, what's the focus here? Because I feel more vulnerable in one than the other, and I don't know what to do. And so I think if you're coming into, like, the UX community, or coming into the tech community, and there's a meetup you want to go to, or an event you want to go to, and you're not sure if this is networking, I'm looking for a job, or we're both in tech but we have this other thing in common, or we just kind of happen to be tech people that are, going bowling, then it's okay to ask an organizer who is there, especially because I think organizers come from this place of wanting community, wanting people to feel included. They're like, yeah, ask me questions. And speaking a little bit from the organizer side of things, I think it's a really good practice on the organizer's part to be proactive in that. Be really clear from the get-go. What can we expect from this event? And and then offer an avenue to ask questions. And it's okay to be new, I think, is a good thing to remember, because that was a thing that I had a hard time with, was wanting to feel legit. I wanted to feel respected and I wanted to feel welcomed and wasn't sure like, oh, well, if I don't know stuff, do I belong here? And if my background's a, you know, like you're talking about between retail or about being an educator, I'm like, is there a place in here for me? And so ask questions, do some research, maybe look at past events. You could reach out to people who'd been there before and say, I'd like to go to this thing. I saw you're going. Can we connect? Can we ask? Could you be my buddy? Could you Yeah, I think there's asking questions and being curious in your approach um, helps helps the kind of transition into it. I think it's a good way to go.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I feel like um, something that I do is like, you go into a new Slack community,
Mhm,
and there is some people that are really active, that is
mhm,
maybe not the organizers, but they are like posting all the time and commenting all the time. It's like, this is a good person to ask questions. And feel like, if you feel like, oh, maybe the organizer doesn't have too much time,
mm,
or you feel and I feel like that sometimes happens. It's like, oh, I'm new here. Will they be interested to talk to me? I feel what if you start talking with participants, they're really active. That
mhm,
means that they care about the community and they want to
mhm,
help out. That's a good one. And this is something that I always like to mention. All of this is going to be so helpful and powerful for that first job that you're going to land. Yes.
yeah,
Imagine yourself being in a new company, in a new job is hard. And this is
mhm,
kind of the same feeling. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I want to be legit and I want them to believe that I can do this.
yeah,
But there's nothing more humble and more powerful than being curious and ask questions and being, again, intentional and genuine, interested about knowing more. So I feel like we're coming to the same, like, make sure that you're asking questions, that you're being genuine, that you are not pretentious and trying to be someone else that you are not, just to be part of the cool kids.
yeah,
I don't think that that works,
yeah.
mm, because then you're not being yourself. That is, again, the most important on all this process. So mhm.
And I think I have found that when you're curious and you ask questions in a new job, that um, it it demonstrates to your colleagues that you're someone they can be vulnerable with and they can ask questions to, and that lays like a nice foundation for building good work relationships, but whatever that might look like. And even if it doesn't have to be like friendships, but just you got a buddy that you can go to when you have this question about some kind of HR thing or I don't know what, but um it sets a good tone, I think. And I think that's really important.
And I will say, for me, this been my superpower all along, regardless of I'm a UX designer or not. For me to be able to connect with my coworkers, different stakeholders,
Gosh, yeah.
it's been like gold, honestly.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
I feel like when I started my career and people say, "Oh my goodness, you're so good at this," I mean, it's like, are you mentioning me as a UX designer because I'm trying to do my best? But I think it was how I was interacting with people, how I was like being, again, opening up and a space for people to come and ask questions, for me to explain in different ways. So
Mhm.
this is a superpower that you're going to use like so much in your career. And sometimes we give it for granted. Yes, it's like, oh, this is myself and this is what I've been doing my whole life. So is this like a superpower? It is. Believe me.
And
Mhm.
that's such a validating thing to hear because I think that's pretty new in my experience is being like, do not all people do this? But that it is a skill thing, that it is about, that that yeah, that's like that it's real, that it's a and that um and then picking it apart, well, not picking it apart, but looking at it more closely to sort of go, oh, so this not only from like an interpersonal space, but also when you have good relationships, what's the business value in that? And how can that, if I wanted to highlight that as I move into this space, it's like, ah, this is good for lots of different things. And it's hopeful. It's great and it's validating. It's nice to hear it. And as someone who's new, it's nice to hear it from you because you win it and you can speak kind of from like direct experience in a UX position, which is a relief for me, I think.
Yeah, no, I think when I realized this is like you were saying, oh, this last thing. But again, I work in retail for 10 years. Yes, like I was managing so many different things happening at the same time. And for me to be able to still keep composure and solve a problem, resolve another thing, and still be happy with my coworkers and empower them to stay positive while they're working. This is something that I worked for 10 years to do. Yes, like it's nothing. Maybe at the beginning, of course, I was not good, but as you practice and get better, it comes so natural. And then we forget that these natural things are so unique to us. So I feel for everybody that is listening, and I feel like this has to do a little bit with the question from Lucid Vision 99. That is like, it's hard to stand up compared to other designers, and staying in your line is hard. Yes, it's like, oh, look at what people is doing. Look at it, how far they have gone. How do I get there? By being yourself and really go inside of you and asking the questions. And it's like, what I'm bringing to the table, what is so unique for me? I mean, this is not the talk for today, but that is going to help you a lot. Okay. Have questions, and I know that we mentioned this at the beginning. Like, what are you up to right now? What is your next goal?
Right now, I am. I've come back to the States. I've been here about 2 months, and after having some time to settle a bit and readjust to some extent, I'm looking for work, and I'm traveling at the moment, and I'm in Seattle, and I've been traveling up the coast and kind of looking around at where would I like to go, and what I'm looking to do. I'm June's been a big month because it's been Pride Month, and so I've had these kind of great opportunities to do something like this and build community and talk to people. So I'm applying for work and involved in projects like this, and seeing my family, and just finding a groove, I think, in continuing UX work and what those kinds of things could look like in my next step, in my next career. That's the big thing at the moment.
Yeah, no, and it's like for me coming back to building community, and I know this is like a UX space, but at the same time we are talking about pride, and it's like how other communities, and for me, beside pride, it could be like the Latinx community or the community who speak Spanish, how all these communities, even though they are not UX or tech related in some spaces, or like me thinking about, I do CrossFit.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's a community.
That's a community. Yes, exactly. So start thinking about the spaces that you were part that maybe they are not like UX or tech related, how these communities are going to help you to get where you want to be to. And I feel like for me, this is such a powerful thing to share your story, to share who you are and what you are looking for. This is at the beginning when I was looking for my first job, I was like, I need to tell everybody about me. I need to tell everybody about like what I'm doing and what is UX at the top of job that I wanted. And honestly, I ended up landing 2 interviews because of the gym. Nothing tech related, but I told people, hey, now I'm back into the market. I'm looking for a UX design role. And there's like, what is UX? And then you start explaining, like, and then you say, this is the type of company that I would like. I would like blah, blah, blah. And then a week, 2 weeks later, it's like, hey, would you like to interview for this? Like, yeah, sure. What it is, I don't know, but let's go.
Yeah.
So telling your story, go and tell people, regardless if it is just UX or not, it's a good way for you to practice your presentation skill, your storytelling skills in a different spaces that is not just tech related. Yeah, like in tech, you can talk anyone about UX design. If you go and talk to your mom, my mom didn't know anything about it. So then you have to explain a little more about how your skills are related and going to be really strong for the new space. My mom ended up like sending me like posts about jobs. It's like, again, people who love and care about you are going to have you in their mind. And every time that they hear UX design, tech, it's like, okay, wait, hold on. I wanted to know more.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I love it. So make sure, I think for everybody that is looking for a job, that is looking for finding a community that values that, talk about it. Like, how do I know what you want if you don't tell me? Yes.
Right.
There is no way to do it. And something that I always put as an example is, let's imagine that there is a new product in the market. Do they keep it quiet and don't tell anybody about it? No. They want to sell. If they want to sell, they have to go outside and tell people about it.
Yep. 100%.
Yes. Okay. Something that I'm really interested to know, and I was so jealous, and I'm still jealous about it. It was Config 2023 in person. How was to be in the Figma conference this year?
It was a bit hectic. I'm going to be honest. Like, it was, so from my perspective, I've come back to the States, and I'm in this space for the first time where I could do, like, my boot camp was all online. And so to get to go to San Francisco and to go be in this space and see, meet with people in person, that was, from my perspective, it was really exciting. It was really cool to be like, oh, so this is Techland, like, and is that just, and like the thick of it, So that was, and I'd never been to San Francisco before, so that was in its own way cool. Config was, it was really big, and so I think that I was really excited to sort of see who was speaking and what kind of sessions there were. And what kind of things were going to be offered, from like booths you could go visit, and partners with Figma. So like user testing was there, and Maze was there, and these different where they have partnerships and integrations and things like that. That was really cool. The sessions, I couldn't get into any.
Oh, for real? It was what a big line to get into it?
Yeah, I think the first morning I got there, the line to go up the one escalator, oh my gosh, to go up to where the sessions were, there were maybe like 800 people in the front, and then they said, sorry, all the sessions are full. And so I was like, oh goodness, what's, and so is there opportunity to go down and like, check out there's people walking around with like merch and stickers and keychains, and so when I couldn't get up to a session, I went downstairs to where like the maker space was. And I'd mentioned earlier I went on a hike before. So
I wanted to say, oh, you met Lily. Yes, did you met Lily?
Yes, I think so. Yeah,
you met Lily. I mean, we're friends with Lily. We have met each other. I had her on my Spanish YouTube side, but I was so excited because I saw he's like, oh, look at her.
Yes. So I'm so glad I went to that, because then when I couldn't get into a session, I went downstairs and I saw someone that I had met on the hike and who had met another person, and then we had a fabulous chat about design, leadership, and navigating teams and some of the challenges at work. And so the stuff I got out of that conversation, I could imagine was on par in terms of value from what I might have gotten out of the session, and it was a networking thing, and it was that. So that part, that the way that those, like, pieces fall together is really cool.
I
And
love
so
it. And I think we come back again to the same idea that, yes, of course, that the hype was like techie and was UX, but how this fall into like now you have people that you can talk about different things, and it's
mhm,
like you have something that you both of you share,
mhm,
and now you feels like friends and it feels like home when
mhm.
you met there. Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Mhm.
loved that, and I liked the space was cool. You know, it was cool to be in this, in the venue, and to be there was a Slack channel as well, so people were really keen to meet up and to ask questions and that piece of it. So I'd met a Figma um what are they called? Design advocate. And so they're very community focused, and they're very much about sharing information and very intentional in connecting. And so that was really cool to see that in action, and not just, I think, the way it can feel a bit behind the scenes in Figma. Um, and because there were other big, so like the hike was with Memorizely, which was really exciting. And then Design Buddies is a Discord channel, and Design Buddies had a big meetup after the conference was done. And I got to meet people from my design lab cohort, my bootcamp cohort, who I had not met in person. And so what an opportunity. It was those pieces of it were what I got the most value out of it. I think logistically it was a lot. And I think that I I give Figma credit for the feedback they took from the first day, where people were like, "That was nuts," like, and made adjustments for the following day that did address some of those issues. So I give them credit there. Um, but it was really. I'll also say one thing that stood out to me that I was a little bit nervous about when I went talking about community stuff is I was afraid that everyone was going to be employed except me. And that it was gonna be everyone in these, like, established design roles with all this long history, and I was gonna be like, "I'm looking for a job," and that wasn't the case, and I don't celebrate that in terms of people who are kind of in the challenging market right now, but I celebrate it because it meant that I was not alone in that, and neither were they. We're all navigating this space. We all have something to contribute to, the conference and to each other and to the meetups and things like that. So I appreciated the diversity of where people were at in their career, um, when I was there. So it was a lot, though. I definitely, one of those days, I just went home and took a nap. I was like, I can watch these on YouTube later.
Yeah,
And
that's how I feel. That's how I feel like in person events, and I feel because I've been so used to do a lot of networking and job fairs online. When
mhm,
I do them in person, it takes so much of me. Yeah, it's like when it's online, I can just say, "Oh, let me take 5 minutes,
yeah,
10 minutes, turn it off, go and walk around, and come back." But
yeah,
when you are in person, it takes a lot of you, like going and smile and make sure that you're looking around and connecting with people. It takes a lot of you.
yeah.
And then you can come back and watch it online. So that's a good one. But I feel like uh, I cannot talk about done in-person events because I'm not really a fan of it, even though I was so jealous of all of you being there. Mostly, again, not because you were to conflict, but because I know that you were going to meet to each other. I think it's like that's what I was missing, the connections. But something important and maybe that we haven't talked about to finish up is,
Mhm.
okay, how do I make these connection or how to build community and following up? Because
Mm.
yeah, we meet and then what? What do we do?
It's a good question. It's an interesting one to navigate, because I think it's one thing if you meet sort of in like a Slack community or in an established group like UX Wizards or Ladies at UX, or spaces like that, and it's another if you met one on one once, and then what do you do? Um, I think some of that I'm still learning for myself. I'll be honest, because I want it to come across as genuine. I don't want to I don't want it to feel like cut and paste or cold or like yeah. So I think you'd asked earlier, what am I working on right now? What am I doing? And so some of it is job hunting. And so when I sit back and I'll go, cool, who would I like to engage with in this, even if it's just to bounce and what questions do I have? That's a good place to start. What questions do I have in this job hunt? Um, and I could narrow it down a bit and say, all right, I'm trying to line up some transferable skills so that I can really work on my CV, my resume. And so, I know that I've got this stakeholder management thing pretty down pat because that's what I did as an educator and as a program manager and all that stuff. Um, so, who in my network might I know that who I maybe have met recently if I want to keep this connection warm, and say, hey, really great to connect with you at such and such. Um, Here's kind of what I've been working on. I'd love to have a chat. Do you have some what's your availability like? And that kind of gives them the opportunity to say, oh, well, I could do a call or we could grab a coffee depending on where you're based. Or it's okay if they're like, send me an email. But whatever it is, it's still something. So I think doing some reflecting on what you're working on and then going, okay, what did I really value about that connection? And how might I intentionally and genuinely follow that up? Um, and some of it I think is you were saying before, you got to just say it. You got to just not get it because I can get ahead of myself and go, maybe they're busy, maybe they're this. And it's like, I think there's a piece of, and I'm working on this about the responsibility if they need to say no or they need to talk about their limited capacity, that's on them, and that that's an important part of any kind of relationship you build is this like they know their capacity, you don't, and to put the energy into being like, well, they might this or they might that, uh, someone else might reach out to them, someone else, they get to tell you no if they need to tell you no, and that's okay. And so I think it's always worth asking. And
Yeah, just go for it. I mean, when you don't ask, it's immediately no. And what could happen in this case about your example is like, okay, maybe I cannot do it at the moment, but I feel like I know someone that may be able to help and it may be better than me. So then you're building now a better community just by asking. I love this.
yeah.
We can talk about this forever. But Elisabeth, thank you so much. And I hope that whoever is listening and want to know more about Elisabeth and maybe landing a job or connecting her with something, please make sure. Something that I forgot to mention too is all her information is somewhere here, wherever you are, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere. If you have, Elisabeth, any Slack channels, communities, or Discord that you mentioned today, maybe you can pass it to me and I will add them here. I will add some of my favorite communities and Slack channels. So if you didn't know where to go and how to start, we are giving it to you. But anything else that you would like to share before finishing?
It was really great to be here. I think this lovely conversation, and happy Pride. Happy Pride, everybody. What a big month it's been. And we love that you're here.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for the Pride Edition. If you're part of the community, thank you so much for being here. You're being seen, you're being heard. This month is more about what you want to do and how you want to celebrate it. If you are here tomorrow, well, online, you can follow. We have a closing Pride Edition, one more back-to-back episode, and something excited too. July, this is June, yeah, July. The theme for UX and Tame is going to be how I landed my first job. So I'm going to bring a lot of people that I have met. They're going to tell us their stories. I'm super excited about that because a lot of people that watch UX and Tame are switching careers, looking for the first job. So I want to bring those stories that happen. You can land your job. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Elisabeth. This was so good. Everybody take care. Bye.
Bye.